This video is a super quick review of the next foundational document you need to know, which is Federalist 78. So a couple things you need to know, just background information. Federalist 78 is written by Hamilton. A bunch of the ones we looked at before were Madison sort of like creations. This one is written by Hamilton, and it's the foundational document you need to know that relates to the judicial branch. So there are a couple sort of like main ideas that Hamilton tries to get across in Fed 78. A lot of this, again, is a direct sort of like rebuttal to the stuff that Brutus wrote. And, we didn't cover it much, but one of the things that Brutus wrote in his sort of attack of the Constitution was that he felt like the courts may abuse their power. Um, Hamilton sort of responds by arguing that, in his opinion, the court system, especially the Supreme Court, is really the least threatening of the three branches. And his argument for this is that it doesn't really have like scary power. Like, so for example, it can't tax or abuse that power, and that was something that obviously coming out of like the whole experience with England that people were still concerned about was the government's taxation power as well as like Supreme Court can't tax anybody. And the other thing was that the Supreme Court doesn't control the military and they can't, use that to their advantage. So because it didn't have the ability to tax or it didn't really have any kind of like military powers, the Supreme Court just wasn't that threatening. So that's one of the main arguments he makes. Hamilton also talks about the idea of judicial review and really argues that this is something that has to be conducted by the courts and not by Congress. And judicial review is the idea of like making sure that the laws that are passed don't go against like what's written in the Constitution, right? And Hamilton's sort of like main argument is that it just makes sense for Congress not to be able to have this power because they're the ones that made the law in the first place. And if they have to judge like the constitutionality of their own laws, chances are they're just going to approve it. So you need like sort of a group that's removed. It just makes sense that this would be the job of like the court system. Also, one of the major topics that Hamilton writes about in Federalist 78 is the importance of what he refers to as like judicial independence. And one of the key parts of this is appointing judges instead of electing them. And he felt like it was important for judges to be appointed because that way, like the people's influence was removed. And again, not that the people aren't significant, but he felt like judges needed to be able to decide what's right or wrong, and that's not always what is popular, right? Sometimes what's popular isn't right. So the fact that they're appointed, like they don't have to worry about running on campaign promises and following through on them and things like that. And then also one of the things he talked about, again, same thing, like judicial independence, was the idea of life terms. He just didn't think it would work well if like judges had to be like reelected, that they should just get their jobs for life, and this would sort of like provide them like insulation from again having to be swayed by like public opinion. The other thing that he sort of wrote about was that he felt like this wasn't going to be a super attractive job, right? That like they weren't going to be able to pay like these judges, especially Supreme Court judges, like a big salary, and it was going to be an immense amount of work. And they felt like one of the things that they had to be able to offer to attract like the best people to do the job would be like the benefit of like life terms. So again, it's a pretty straightforward document. Sort of just reviews the judicial branch and some of the key aspects like surrounding it.